This is scenario BTB number 1 from Busting the Bocage installment module from the Advanced Tobruk or ATS system. The title of the scenario is Shrapnel Separation, and we are getting started turn 1. I'm going to go ahead and skip the indirect fire segment because I don't think there's anything to be done. The Americans are not on the board yet, so we're going to move to the firing movement phase. The scenario card says American moves first. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that that means the Americans can take the first impulse. Over here on the north side of the board here, going to take our first American force here. It is an officer, a bar gunner, and 3 squads. So that's a total of 11 stacking points. And they're going to come on the board. They're going to enter this first hex, Y14, which is a shell hole hex. If I remember correctly from the rules, the shell holes take precedence. So even though this was a clear hex with a road, the fact that it is a shell hole hex means that the shell hole effects take precedence, so it's 2 movement points. Oh, I should say declaring running movement. So running movement with a leader. Okay, so 2 to enter the shell hole hex. 3 movement points total now to enter this clear hex, and then 4 to enter this clear hex. Now I'm just going to pause here for a moment because I want to look at some observation questions. So the Americans are there in a clear hex with a road with Bocage on either side. I want to consider, observation purposes, the Germans here in the second story of this manor house. Now, these Germans began the scenario under full cover. I'm going to assume, again, I'm assuming here that they cannot observe, or if they can observe, it would only be an adjacent hex. Because if I remember correctly, the rules say that units under full cover can only attack enemies located adjacent. So I will skip that group and assume that they cannot observe the Americans that just came on the play area. So I'm going to look at the MG-34 and its crew right there. Again, they are at the second story, so they're at plus 20 elevation. And now let's figure out how we assess their ability to observe straight across. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hexes away to the Americans there. I'm going to go ahead and move aside the counters, string a line just to take a look at what terrain is actually being covered. Okay, so looks to me like, to start with, I guess it's crossing the Bocage hex side between, I think it's U15 and U14. Or U15 and V14. I think maybe for rules purposes it'll be, I wonder if it would be the same. Alright, let's say yeah, I still say it's U15, U14. Okay. Alright, so how do we assess all of this? There is something called a blind hex creation table. Or maybe the first thing I'm going to look at. Okay, spotting conditions are optimal. Since spotting conditions are optimal per the scenario special rule, I don't think there's any issue of even bothering to look on the spotting ranges table. So underneath there is the loss blind hex creation table. Range between higher level unit and terrain. So I guess if it's kind of that hex side there. Passes right here, I guess. So 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hexes to the terrain. There's a 7 to 12 column. The height difference. The height difference is it plus 20? I think it's plus 20. It creates, well, actually, it only creates one blind hex. If I did this correctly, number equals blind hexes created by terrain along loss from higher unit. Ooh. Reduced by 1 for firing and target unit on same hill. Okay, none of that applies. So range between higher level unit and terrain. Wow, so that, I'm just going to leave it there. I'll check the details later. I think that they did come into contact, observation. Wow, already. Well, let's play it. So the Americans walked right into hex W14, ran into hex W14, and because they are at the oh, ew, wow. You know, I guess that there would be a difference. This is not helping. If they mean the height difference is between the if they mean the height difference of U15 ground and the MG34 unit, that's a difference of plus 20. But if they mean the height of this Bocage, then that would only be a difference of plus 10, which is a difference between one blind hex, one blind hex or two blind hexes. So blind hex creation. And I also remember, well, let's start with blind hex create. Blind hex is 6.2.61. 6.2.61 blind hexes. Okay, so blocking terrain, for example, woods, and landforms, for example, hills, higher than the target location. So that would be our Americans there. And along an LOS may create blind hexes, one or more hexes directly behind the obstacle. And the obstacle would be the Bocage. They lie in the shadow of a terrain form, for example, buildings, woods. Loss to a unit in a blind hex is blocked. Only terrain and or landforms, or a combination of them, that rise plus 10 levels or higher than the target unit compared to the height of the firing unit create blind hexes. Level plus 5 terrain, for example, rubble, wall hedge, and landforms never create blind hexes. They only block loss along same level continuous slope losses. Okay, here's a section for the lost blind hex creation table. Consult the lost blind hex creation table to determine the number of blind hexes created. The axis on the left, labeled height difference, represents the elevation difference between the higher level unit and the intervening blocking terrain. Oh, that is So that is only a difference of plus 10 because Bocage hex site is plus 10 in height. The firing, or the, well, let's say the observing unit, is at plus 20. So that is a difference of just plus 10, which means that there are two blind hexes created. Now there's a huge problem here because when I string the line, it seems to go over U15 and U14, not U15 and V14. So if that's the, well, yeah, I guess the two blind hexes would be U14 and V14. Something, or, that seems odd. Alright, I'll try just one more time. But yeah. Yep. Huh. So if it crosses U15, U14, then I guess the two blind hexes are U14 and V14. U14 and V14. W14 is not a blind hex. Alright, I'll go with that. Blind hexes are created along the line of sight, starting in the hex directly behind the terrain form and continuing toward the lower unit unless the blind hex is created by a hill contour of the same hill, which reduces blind hexes by 1. Okay. Alright. So that's a bit of a surprise. I was assuming, actually, that the Americans would not be observed. So the MG34 is going to open up with opportunity fire. Range of, again, 9, which is in regular range. They have a rate of fire of 2, but which again I think for opportunity fire, I think it's is it the number of movement points expended in that hex, in which case it's only 1. How many? A unit may not use more opportunity fire rate of fire against a moving unit than the target unit spends in movement points while entering the targeted location in its first. Entering the targeted location, it is first fired on and using opportunity fire. Yeah, so they only spend 1 movement point. In hex, what's that? W4 Whiskey 14. So the MG34 is going to take 1 rate of fire against the moving Americans there. So it is 8 gunfire factors. Running is 2 right. 2 right. And I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah, 2 right for running. Just want to make sure. No. Okay. So we go to the normal standard casualty table. We start with column 8 because that's the MG34's gunfire factors. We go 2 right for running Americans. We're on the 14 column. Now, before I roll the die to fire, I do want to take a look at jamming weapons, which gun jamming is under the optional rules. Anytime a weapon of any kind, including heavy weapons and vehicle MGs, but excluding personnel, printed gunfire factors, and grenades, okay, fires, roll an extra die to represent the possibility of jamming. Original doubles results in a weapon jam. Okay, so I actually never noticed that optional rule before, so I'm going to add a jamming die. Okay, wow, this is going to be a devastating shot. Rolled a 5 for the jam. It's not double 2s, so that's that. But a 2 on the 14 column is C4. Wow. C4. Oh, I finally remembered. I'm going to do my collateral fire. I think it's eligible. I think I'm eligible to do that. Okay. 4 casualty. Again, I have no idea like what the rules implications are here, so I'm still figuring those out. So as far as I understand, I can just wipe out a whole unit. That's 4 steps. Where's that 3? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's 4. So I can just wipe out a whole unit. Or I could distribute them in any other fashion. Yeah, so yeah. So casualty morale check. Personnel units that survive a C. They did survive a C4. Because the 4 is a modifier, I can see somewhat of an effect there. So the fact that I wiped out a whole unit as opposed to distribute the losses, well, I'm still not sure of all the rules implications, but the remaining units still have that C4 morale check. Okay, so let's go through each step here. So we start with the officer. There are 2 full squads with him. So his base morale of 8 goes up to 10. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any conditions from the morale table, but I don't think I am. Each 3 strength point personnel unit. Okay, each AFV. He doesn't affect himself. Yeah. Okay. So it is, his morale is 10. So his morale is 10. Okay, so he passes. Okay, so Sergeant Cryer, his morale is 9. plus 2 for the other squads, plus another 2 for the officer. It's like 13. So he passes. Then we go to this squad. It starts with 9, 10 for the other squad, 12 with the officer. Ooh. Okay, what 1? That's an automatic pass. And okay, so they all pass their. Oh wait. Okay, I'm going to do it all over again because I forgot to modify for the C4 result, which is pretty significant. Let's start this all over again. The captain is 8, so that's why I do have to figure out all these actual numbers and everything. So the actual modified morale values. Okay, 8, 9, 10. Okay, 10. He rolled a 5, plus 4 is 9, so he still passes. Sergeant Cryer, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And he gets it exactly. 9 plus 4 is 13, so he passes. The first of the 2 squads, okay, 9, 10, 11, 12. Passes easily. And he passes easily. Okay, because I rolled low. I had to remember to add 4 to that die roll for the C4 combat result in that hex. Okay, so okay, they pass. Which is interesting. I guess the remainder can continue moving because I don't see why not. But let's do collateral fire. Collateral fire, new, okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, placement. Any direct fire, this is direct fire, and or mortar attack leaves collateral fire equal to half of its gunfire factors frag in the target location to a maximum of 24. If the attack was resolved using plus or minus DRM instead of shifts. No. So okay. So this is supposed to be such a simple thing. Is this after the column shifts? Is this 1/2 of 8 or 1/2 of 14? I think it is. So does it leave 4 collateral fire or 6 collateral fire? Huh. Equal to half its gunfire factors frag in the target location. Alright, I guess it's 14. Halve to 7 and then go down to 6 because there is no 7 column. Is that? I guess so. I'll put a collateral fire value of 6 there now. Oh, and then I'll put a single fire marker on the MG34. Okay, so oh yeah, of course. So now I guess the collateral fire marker stays there. The stack moves on. They're going to move to Victor 14 because that's a blind hex. Interesting. So that's 5. Huh. He's going to move on. So 6 movement factors spent so far. Moving to U14. Let's see the machine gun again. Okay, so it's clearly 2 hexes beyond a Bocage. The Bocage is S15 or Sierra 15 Tango 14. And the distance to the obstacle, it's funny, it's a hex side, I guess it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5. Check the blind hex creation table again. Okay. Ooh. Okay, so that's now on the table we've moved to another column, and now it's only 1 blind hex created because of the angle now, because basically it's all closer. So only Tango 14 is a blind hex, so the Americans in uniform 14 are wide open again. So the MG34 fires again. Again it's the 14 column. Oh, wow, we got doubles. So now what happened? By the way, does the attack still go through and then it jams? Probably. That's funny, it doesn't say. What? Alright, let's try to figure it out here. Roll an extra die to represent the possibility of jamming. Original doubles results in a weapon jam. That's funny, it just doesn't say whether the... Huh. Well, let's see if it... Well, in game terms it would only be a C1 anyways, but I guess it means it jams... I guess it means it jams before it has any appreciable effect, right? I guess. Interesting. Well, let's just play it. So the Americans are back in uniform 14, having expended 6 movement points. The MG, now I'm going to have to look at unjamming. I guess it's still, alright, first of all, I guess it would still be marked with a fire marker, so I'm going to exchange that 1 fire marker for 2 fire marker. Okay, and now I'm going to put a weapon jam marker on it. So now I got to figure out unjamming. Clearing jammed F-killed weapons. The breach of any jammed, including weapons F-killed normally, weapon may attempt to be cleared. Only weapons currently manned, carried by non-broken surrendered units, and those of non-suppressed vehicles may roll. A roll of 1 during the end of turn segment clears the weapon. Wow, only a 10% chance? Wow. Only a 1% chance, so There's not even a high, and this is turn 1. So that MG34 is significantly out of the fight as it looks now. Wow. Well, what do you know? Wow. So I guess it can go, I guess we go under the fire marker. Okay. Wow. Well, it still took out a whole, well, it actually took out a whole American squad, actually, so it's not like it hadn't done something yet. Wow, that is, huh. Alright, so the Americans are going to move one more hex, spending 2 movement points to, well, for the shell holes. They're winded because they ran. Place the movement arrow behind them. This is kind of funny, the collateral fire marker left behind. It's kind of funny that this collateral fire is, well, you know what, I retract that statement. I was going to say it's funny that collateral fire is being assessed by a weapon that's jammed, but actually you could say that in game terms that weapon actually could have jammed at the very, very end of the turn. Yeah, so never mind. This is to represent all the fighting that's taking place throughout the turn. So, yeah. So this is purely for game mechanics purposes. I'm actually going to have actually, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. I guess now it's the Germans' impulse. That was interesting, though. Huh. All right, so what would the Germans do? Yeah, I want to see. Consider Germans. What do we do if we want this squad to exit the rubble? Exit the rubble, crawl forward into the hedgehog, or for that matter, yeah. What do we do if we want him to enter the hex with the hedgehog and enter the hedgehog? So, what do we do here? Hedgehogs have 2 positions. On top effects, personnel in the light and medium weapons are in improved cover, nor the units receive a cover benefit. Okay. Under effects, only personnel units and their light and medium weapons may be placed under a hedgehog marker during movement and infiltration. Personnel may also drop into full cover when stacked on top of a hedgehog. Units under a hedgehog receive full cover. Well, let's experiment here. Personnel may move under a hedgehog at the cost of 1 MP or via infiltration. When moving from hedgehog to hedgehog, okay. Personnel under a hedgehog may also move and infiltrate to an adjacent AT trench, bunker, blockhouse, weapons pits, and a building cellar, and vice versa. When under the movement and moving between hedgehogs or allowable emplacements terrain as per the immediately preceding sentence, ignore the cost of any hex side terrain, for example, Bocage wall. Movement restrictions. Hedgehogs do not affect movement for fully or half-tracked vehicles. Okay, so I guess the unit moves into Tango 21, paying 1 for the normal clear terrain, and then pays another movement point to go underneath the hedgehog, something like that. And then that was assault movement. Okay. All right. Back to the Americans. All right. Purely for game purposes, because I want to exercise a collateral fire mechanism. The next 3 American squads, the one that's also carrying the German MG-42, is going to enter along the same road, but not running. So 2, 3, and 4. So they enter the hex Whiskey 14 with the 6 collateral fire. So now it is, I guess, an immediate attack. Resolution. Any newly entering unit that may be affected by a gunfire factor's attack, well, that would be the personnel units there, is attacked on the casualty table normally, including subsequent morale checks for any casualties that result from the attack, courage, etc., using the value of the collateral fire marker placed in any movement type based cover modifiers only. For example, running movement. Movement type, okay. Cover, okay. Well, they're moving by assault movement, so collateral fire affects only the location thing. Okay, so actually there is a one right for assault moving, right? So the only way to really mitigate that is to crawl. Well, it's not really worth. Well, depends on the situation, right? Okay, so 6 right 1 for assault movement is the 8 column. Oh, isn't that interesting? Would you still? I guess you're not rolling for jamming. And then, all right, 6. 6 on the 8 column. Oh, it's actually C1. C1. So, all right. So a unit, one of the squads takes one casualty marker. Now we go through it and do morale checks. A C1 morale check. So, doesn't matter which one. Doesn't matter which one. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I guess I'll go top to bottom this time. So the top squad has a morale of 9, plus 1 for the full squad is 10. And I guess he gets another one for the other squad, even though it has a... That's funny, because there's a situation... There's a situation modifier of -1 for casualties marker, but is that... Now I guess that applies only to that unit. But isn't that interesting? Yeah, it must be. Alright, so it's 9, 10, 11. 9, 10, 11. Alright, he's fine. I remember to add the 1 for the C1 result. The next squad is 9, 10, 11. It's okay, and the last one is 9 minus 1 for the casualty markers, 8. 9, 10 for the other 2 squads with them. Yeah, okay, so they all pass fine. Alright, so now they can move on, right? So 5. They're done moving. Assault movement. Assault movement. Something like that. back to the Germans. So here the sergeant here is going to take his squad and machine gun. All right, they're going to now question. They're in rubble. They're heading to rubble. They're also crossing a hedge hex side, right? So they're leaving rubble, crossing a hedge hex side, and entering a rubble hex. Can they do this all with crawling movement? I guess they also could just wait for infiltration, but I want to experiment, get practice with all these rules. So is that crawling movement allows personnel to enter an accessible adjacent location, including the next higher or lower location of the same hex. So I guess I'm just looking for what they can't do. A crawling personnel unit may use assault fire during its move before or after entering the new hex or location, and may enter an adjacent accessible location that would normally require more than 4 movement points. So well, how much would that be in movement? Crossing a hedge. Is 1 plus cost of terrain. Okay, so what's rubble? Rubble is 2. Okay, so it's 3. I think they can do that, right? Because it's 2 for the rubble plus 1 for the hedge is 3. Yeah, so they are going to crawl, and the movement marker goes top of the stack like that, I think. All right, back to the Americans. We have our last force here. Yeah, so we have the NCO with 3 squads and a bazooka, so 10 stacking points altogether. It's a lot of shell holes here. So if they come on, 2, 4, 6, 8, they're going to run. So they're declaring running movement. Oh, no. Okay, 2 for the shell hole, 3, 4 for a shell hole, 5, 6 for 1, 2 for the first shell hole, 3, 4 for the next shell hole, 5, 6 for the third shell hole, and 7, 8 for the last shell hole behind the Bocage. They are winded. They're winded. They ran. That. So those are all the 3 American forces after all of their movement. All right. So 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so what happens, and what does happen when I want the German units here to come up or out from full cover so that they can shoot at the Americans at range when they become visible. Leaving full cover. A unit may exit full cover in the following ways. The unit exits the location in which it set up, marked with an FC marker. I don't want to do that. The unit spends one movement point or uses crawl infiltration to remove the FC marker or to move on top of an emplacement marker. There we go. They will declare crawling movement. They will come out from full cover. They don't want to leave that spot. I guess they're still marked as crawling, and that's that. Both sides pass. It's the end of this fire and movement phase. All very interesting. Wow. All sorts of things happened that I was not expecting. Jammed machine gun. Wow. Pushed all the Americans on that side. Now that's interesting because the Americans got on this side, but all the victory hexes are on the other side of the map. So, alright, so that's the end of the fire movement phase. Back to our sequence of play. Okay, so the end of the fire movement phase, remove all collateral fire and pinned down markers. It's kind of funny. I don't remember what a pinned down marker looks like, by the way. 10.6, there's a rules reference here. 10.6. I don't know what is even meant by pinned markers, but okay. Alright, so close assault segment. So I guess we'll roll because, yeah. Germans rolled low. They will they will have the Americans go first, so now this is interesting. Can a stack that's winded infiltrate across Bocage into the shell hole hex? Oh, that is what he wants to do. So infiltration 12.15.1. Infiltration. Even if marked as moved or fired, a personnel unit or stack of personnel units in the same location that is otherwise capable of moving may infiltrate as follows. Move into an accessible location of the same hex or an adjacent hex. Move under or on top of an emplacement counter. Notes. A unit may infiltrate into an adjacent hex but may not move under an emplacement in the newly entered hex. A unit may not enter an adjacent building hex at ground level and move to a higher level of newly entered hex. The infiltration movement is otherwise treated in the same manner as crawling. Wow, I guess they can. That seems fairly powerful, but I do want to make sure. I guess we go back to the winded. Can winded units infiltrate? I understand even though they're marked with movement and F markers, but what about What about winded, though? Winded. A winded marker is placed on running personnel. A personnel unit already marked as winded may not use running movement. Exception, courage. Remove previously placed winded markers from units after using a movement or firing pulse, or at the end of the firing movement segment if they do not move or fire. Removal does not require the use of an impulse. Exhausted infantry. Again, I don't see why they can't. So they're going to infiltrate across the Bocage into the shell holes. Back to the Germans. Germans pass. Let's see. This stack is going to infiltrate across the Bocage into the shell holes. Back to the Germans, they pass. Americans pass, and back and forth, and so into the close assault segment. There's no melee. End of turn segment. Both players perform the following actions: remove melee, overrun, and ceasefire markers. Remove movement arrows. Remove movement arrows, flares, 2 smoke, and F markers. Okay. Check for intimidation. Decide whether to remove movement arrows from vehicles. Flip 1 smoke markers to 2 sides. Spread flame 1 building level up. Flip FFE markers to their CFF side. Flip eligible counters to fog of war side. Roll to unjam weapons. Okay. So, the Germans want a 1 to unjam their MG34, and they roll a 5. So it is still jammed. Wow. Both players perform the following rally actions. No rallying to do. Yeah. That's it for the first turn. That was turn 1 from Busting the Bocage, scenario number 1, Shrapnel Separation.